It's 5 p.m. in San Francisco, it's 8 p.m. in New York, and 1 a.m. in London. Thank you so much for joining us here. It's actually 9 a.m. here in little old Perth in Western Australia, and it's Friday. In fact, it's Black Friday. Yes, and I can tell you that there's many good deals coming your way. And if you watch my last 3 episodes on the channel, you'll know that for sure. And actually, in fact, we've got actually a couple of other people on the show today who have some Black Friday news for you on their channels. We'll get to those in a moment. But first of all, if you're in the chat, thank you so much for being here. Do like this video right away so that it lets other people know they should be joining in the fun. And also just want to say to the people in the chat, make sure you keep chatting. Let us know what you think about the music, because we are going to be listening to 3 songs today from the community, and we're going to be sort of giving praise where we think praise is due and some constructive criticism where we think that's warranted as well. If you do want to submit a song, and someone was asking me earlier, then do follow the link in the description down below and I will take a listen. I also want to thank the sponsor for the show. This is DistroKid. We'll be talking about them a little later on. Awesome place to go to release your music to the world. Nice to see some people in here. We've got Mimo Japan, who is indeed our moderator as usual. And I don't think Mimo has to moderate much, but don't test him, I say. He is under instructions to hunt you down and cruelly treat you if you should say anything inappropriate. That could be one of the guests on the show, in fact, who is most likely to do that. Probably Pete Johns, who I'll pull up in a minute, who's not immune to dropping an F-bomb on this show. In fact, the only one in the history of Creative Source in 3 years to drop an F-bomb. But yeah, that's Pete. You know, he's got that hidden side to him. Let's before we bring Pete in, let's say hello to Ricky T. Brown. Nice to see you here, Ricky. I gather it's 1 a.m. in London. Ricky, of course, is the great leader of the best Facebook group on the internet in the world for home recording. I can't never remember the name of it, but it's awesome. You should definitely check it. Put the link in the chat, please, for me, please, Ricky. Yeah. Okay, let's bring up my first guest. I can see he's waiting, probably waiting to say something really, really rude. He is Pete Johns from Studio Live today, the man who's on 99.4 thousand subscribers. He sounds like a radio station or something now. Here he is. What do you say, Pete?
99.4 FM, Pete Johns, coming to you live from Adelaide, South Australia. Hope you're doing well out there. No, I'm not going to swear. Not going to swear today.
Leave it till the end of the show. Let's say I'll just book it in. We're in the 3rd minute of the show now. I'm going to book you in for some sort of swear word at 57 minutes into the show, okay? Track that in the chat.
There you go.
It's true. Doug is just saying Pete's a natural. Yep, a natural.
A natural what, though?
Indeed. Now, Pete is in another time zone to me, all the way over there in Adelaide. Pete?
Correct.
You are. I get confused about this. Are we an hour and a half apart?
We are. I've forgotten to. It's 11:30 a.m. here. We're 2.5 hours apart, I believe.
2.5
most of the time. But it depends on if it's daylight saving, and it depends on whether Mercury's in retrograde. It all changes. It all depends. So no, we're usually about an hour and a half or 2.5 hours, which is good because it means that when there's cricket on in Perth, it goes till late at night.
So you've just said the word cricket, and you've lost our whole US audience, of which it's mostly the US today. But how should we explain cricket to them?
Cricket, like baseball, but slightly less boring? Oh no, now you've lost the other half. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone, while I make you...
a sport so vigorous you can wear a sweater. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, a sport that can take 5 days to play and there may not be a result. There you go. That's correct.
Now, Pete, you've give me some highlights. I was watching your show before you came on today, and you were milking the Black Friday train, just as I am guilty of doing. So
Absolutely.
Give me your number one Black Friday. Of all the things you talked about in your show, your number one Black Friday pick.
The number one Black Friday pick is actually the fact that the Short SM7Bs are on sale for the first time ever. Like, that thing's been $399 since the beginning of time, and it's only $359 at the moment over on Sweetwater. So because I'm on Mike's channel, you should go to his links down in the description.
Is it? I thought it was. It's $349. It's there for, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's $359. I could be wrong. $40 off. I think it's $359.
$40 off. Yeah. I was talking about that, and me and you discussed this when we'd started our channels, and we were thinking, should we get it or not? By the way, I wasn't given this one by anyone. Sure or not that kind. I've never reviewed it, actually, to be honest with you, so fair enough. But I bought this one. But we did discuss it a lot. I mean, you've considered it, and you've considered it, and you've considered it yourself, haven't you?
Yeah.
And what I'm going to tell you now is it is good right away. Don't waste your money on a cloud lifter, is what I'd say. That's what I did, and you don't really need to.
You don't need
Just whack the gain up on most interfaces. That's all the cloud lifter's really doing anyway, you know.
Exactly. If you got a decent interface and you got enough gain in there, then you should be right with most dynamics. But
even with some tiddly little interfaces I've used, that you wouldn't think of as big deal ones, it's worked absolutely fine. I've just had to have it up on like 8.
Yeah, love it.
To work. So just so you know. Anyway, let's not get too chatty because we'd be leaving out the star of the show.
Oh, drum roll.
The star.
Oh, I see what you did there. Yeah, I thought I would be more switched on today, but I'm apparently less. Yes, the star.
Let's welcome to the gang our favourite app YouTuber, none other than the wonderful Jade Starr. I knew that Jade would do that. Oh.
Hello, everybody. Hey, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for having me on the show.
Happy Turkey Day.
How you going, Jade?
I'm good, yeah. It's been a busy morning. Already done a live stream myself. Had an interview over on my channel, and I'm doing okay. It's
Who was
the weekend. Good stuff.
Who was on your interview?
Night Train 1989. He's an artist from the UK. And it was a really good interview. Really cool.
And you're doing so for those of you who don't know, I'll just explain that Jade's got Jade does a lot of stuff about music in general, but the sort of focus of the identity of the channel is surrounding iOS-based apps, okay? And I know many of you will be iOS users in the chat there, so definitely check the links in the description for Pete and Jade's channel and hook yourself up there to watch some great videos. But Jade, I know that you're doing a Black Friday iOS special tomorrow. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm going to put together a whole bunch of lists of apps that are on sale by developers. So we just go through the developers and what they've got on sale because there's a heap and they've all just kind of dropped today. Be going through some of the ones I've done shows on and what I think is worth a look. And if it's not worth a look, tell me to get stuffed because it's all about, like I say in the show, apps aren't Pokemon. You don't need to collect them all. You only need the ones that make you happy.
Okay. Cool. Has PornTube got an app? I don't know. Anyway, look at the shocked faces either side.
That kind of show, is it?
Hey, we can say anything apart from the C word, and I'm not talking about the C word that you were talking about earlier, Jade. Anyway, moving on quickly before I get myself in trouble. Nice to say hi to some of the people who are in the chat. They're already getting going there in the chat. Nice to see... I can't get the pronunciation probably. Kionra, I almost got it wrong, didn't I? I like to see Kionra around because she is actually in Perth, in Western Australia. In fact, we found out the other day, I'm having a little bit of a chat with her about some studio gear, that she actually lives in exactly the same suburb as me. And I'm like, oh, there's somebody who might actually recognise me in public and my kids will think I'm famous. But, nice to see you in here. And we've also got We've got a Brad example here, which is a great example of a surname. I use that dynamic stick cloud lifter on my S57. Sounds really cool, but I know it's not important. Yeah, Brad, look, it does have a use. I didn't mean to diss the cloud lifter. I spent $350 on mine. I should be feeling good about it, but I just feel. In fact, a good friend of the show from White Noise Studio, Marlon, did a really interesting video about the cloud lifter and why it's almost completely unnecessary. And he will explain it better than me. So look up White Noise Studio and look for the cloud lifter video, and you'll see a great example of how we get sucked into things as musicians that we don't need. Which is why yeah.
Is that one of those things that, like, you know, Pro Tools HD users with like $50,000 studios that are recording like this pristine violin solo are just like, I can't get enough gain, and then all of us regular folks that just want to bash out an acoustic guitar part, we listen to them and do the same thing?
Precisely, exactly. That's one of those things. Yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors.
He did a great review of the new Volcano 3 this week as well, which I reviewed on
Yes,
iOS.
I saw that both of you had done that. The Fab Filter.
Amazing app. Bang.
I haven't checked it out, but yeah, but that's been around for a while as a plugin.
It was Volcano 2. It had an uglier interface, and what they've done with the new version, they've taken a little bit from Pro Q, and they've taken a little bit from Saturn, and they've added that in. So you've got much more movement. So you can pretty much now master with it, EQ with it. But it's really good for like taking a song and taking it to some creative places using filters, automation and stuff. It's cool. I didn't think I needed it until I got it, and then was like, oh wow, this is really good.
I have it's nice when you discover something like that, isn't it? It's something that could be marketing hype, but then when you get it, I get it. You know, and I will say this, and this is not a cheapie at all, but I've mentioned this in a couple of my Black Friday. This is not a Black Friday thing, but I've never reviewed it, but I do have a Universal Audio Apollo X4 sitting on my desk. It's been here for a few months, and it's expensive. Let's face it. For most of us, it's just expensive. However, I will say, having used it, that it's awesome. The workflow, the process of using it. Those latency-free plugins on board, nothing, and the quality of them is great. All their routing, their mixer, their software, the hard, it's all good. That's nice, because some things cost a lot, and when you get them, you go, shit. I swore. Pete,
yay!
I followed
More than me. I didn't do it first.
I'm not sure shit's a swear word anymore, is it?
I don't think so. I think I heard it on Neighbours the other day. I think it's fine.
Yeah. My kids say it, and I turn a blind eye.
You still watch
All right,
that,
I guess
Pete?
we better get on with the show.
Time, mate, all the time.
We better get on with the show.
Oh, yeah, what are we here for? Oh, music. Okay.
Music. We're only 13 minutes in. Remember, 57 minutes in,
Cricket.
you're booked in for an F-bomb, Pete.
No, I'll remember it.
We'll save it for the last track. It's either going to be effing awesome or effing terrible, according to Pete.
Love it. I'm ready. Bring it on.
Okay, so listen, the tracks today, I'm going to openly say up front for people watching that I think they're going to come in for a little constructive criticism in terms of sort of things like mix and what have you. And I've definitely come to the conclusion, mostly through chats with Jade, but other guests on the show, that this is a better way to go. We want to be able to help people who are needing to move forward a little bit in some way, or just, look, we're not necessarily super experts. It's just always handy to have another set of ears listen to what's been going on with your music. So that's what we're going to have fun with today. The first track is from Dave Hammond, Hamon. It's called Broken. Right away. Sometimes there's titles to songs, isn't there, where you go, okay, I dig that. It's just one word, broken. But I'm in there already. He's saying that he was trying for a Led Zeppelin feel, but feels he was struggling, and it's never quite big enough. Dave's a drummer and a keyboardist and plays those parts in the song. He plays the drums on Roland pads using Session Drummer 3. He doesn't play acoustic drums because his studio situation is in a house. He's his neighbours are not going to appreciate acoustic drums, so that's his sort of reasons for that. And he actually maps out the guitar parts on virtual guitars to begin with, and then he sort of hands those over to real guitarists for finishing off. Recorded in Cakewalk. He did give me a bunch of other information, but I think it's the most pertinent stuff. Probably, he says he's done, in his words, done a ragged attempt at mastering using Isotope. Anyway, let's have a listen to Broken.
I think of you, harmony long gone. Now I sing a different song that makes me blue. I remember brighter days. Now I'm standing in a haze. You've broken every promise that you made. Your every scene is overdone. There's nothing new under the sun. I made it out, I made it through. Finally over you. I hear what people say as you turn your back and walk away. You wouldn't listen anyway, not you. And I'm not broken, though you broke this heart in two. And I won't be broken over you. I once showed you my heart, then you tore it apart, made an abstract work of art. My resurrection has begun. There's something new under the sun. I made it out, I made it through. Finally over you. And I'm not broken, though you
Yeah, thanks, Dave, for that. Sorry for taking you out of the stream there, Jade, for a moment.
You will be.
Something subliminal happening. I don't know. And that's what I was going to throw over to Jade first. I feel like Jade's going to be most qualified to critique this track. I just feel that the sort of music that me and Pete do compared to what Jade does, a lot more bigger productions than that, then Jade's going to be the most qualified. So I'm going to go straight over to you, Jade, and have your say. Thanks, but just a quick thanks to Dave for submitting this. What do you reckon, Dave? Jade, even?
Well, Jade's song's pretty good. All right, so the way I'm going to approach today's show is I'm going to put on my engineer's hat and look at a song at how I would approach remixing it if I got the chance. So don't get angry at me, anything that I say. That's how I'm going to approach it today. Okay. There's what I want to start off with first. I really love the choruses with the vocals. I thought the harmonies in there were fantastic, really on the money. The lead vocal for the verses sat nicely there, so that's all good, and I'm sure if there were any issues with vocals probably being a little bit too loud in the verses, they would be sorted with what I'm going to say next. I feel that staying on the vocals there, you could have taken off what I would do if I was remixing. I would have pulled out some of the reverb from the drums and given them over to the vocals. Just space that reverb more onto the vocal, because I think the drums were swimming a little bit too much in the reverb, and because the rest of the instruments were really nicely balanced, but what I was hearing in my headphones was the drums were just swimming in so much reverb. It really was a thing that I couldn't shake. So that's the only really big critique. I think if you pulled back some of that reverb and just a little bit over to the vocals, that would really balance it out nicely. And the only other thing, look, I think it's a really good song. I really love the lyrics. I think for it being a title about being broken, it had a really positive vibe about it. Like there was a thing about putting back together, it felt like, than not being broken and unfixable. So the only other thing I will touch on is the length of the song. I would probably rip out some of it and reel it in a little bit, because there was a lot, and I love a solo in there, but there was a lot, and I would probably just shorten it up a bit. You'd only need to lose maybe 40 seconds out of it, but it would make a huge difference. So that's me saying from putting on my re-engineering hats. But apart from that, fantastic song. I was into it the whole way through, so lovely work.
Good stuff. And I just want to touch upon what you said about reverb there, because one of the ways that I didn't always think like this, but one of the ways in more recent years I've thought about this, and this may be helpful to people in the chat, when you're thinking about positioning of things, like we think of pan for left and right, so we want that over there, that over there. Think of reverb as backwards and forwards. Like the more reverb you put on something, it's like moving it further away. Yeah. So it's tempting. I mean, there's stylized reverb where you could, have, particularly like, say you want a 50s sound, you might have a certain large reverb on the vocal, and then, the rest of the band might have a different reverb. But I know Pete often talks about using reverb to kind of glue things together and make them feel like they're in the same space. But it's also useful to think about it as a distance thing. And I don't know about the whole drum kit, but it's often handier to think about short delays first, so like a slapback delay first, to put things in space, to take the dryness out of them, and that doesn't have them disappear, and then use reverb as like your secondary kind of thing. That's my point on there. Mr. Johns, how did you enjoy that?
I did enjoy that. See, I've probably got a different hat on. I've legitimately got my hat on. But I've got more of a listener hat on today, because I haven't listened to much music. I've been busy the last week as we were chatting about the pre-show, and I haven't been listening to music. So I'm just like, I'm just going to enjoy some music here this afternoon. I thought it was really cool. I thought it had a very 80s vibe, and the processing and the way it was produced seemed to be along those vibes. So the big reverberant drums, the lot of sort of panning and depth and space that was in there, the guitar tone tone with the Hammond as well. Very sort of 80s and very lots of cool little lead licks and lots of call and response stuff in there. So I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was like a jam band. Like I could imagine just sort of sitting back at a club or watching them on stage, and you'd have, you know, your keys player and your guitar player and your bass player like doing that thing where they get together next to each other on the mic stands and like they're jamming together and doing the thing.
All the heads are bobbing at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Bob and all that. I like the vocal processing with the delay. Like I'm a bit of a sucker for a delay at the end of a word, just to sort of bridge in between things. And yeah, a lot of space in there. So again, I think what Jade covered up on the reverb is what I would say as well. I would probably tighten that up a little bit because it did seem that the drums were in, to the point you made that I say often about space. The drums almost sounded in a different space, which created really good separation of the instruments, but it meant it sounded more like 4 different instruments playing like separately as opposed to one space. And like you mentioned, Mike, if that's the effect and if that's what the production style was that you wanted to go for, then mission accomplished. You did a really good job of that. Had some good range in there, but I think the mix was quite full on the whole way through. Probably more the arrangement than the mixing. That there wasn't really a gap. And look, that's cool if you just want it to flow and to keep doing its thing. But in my head, I heard like a really cool breakdown at one stage with maybe just some organ and bass and vocals or something, or just removing some of that stuff, because it almost seemed a bit the same the whole way through, in that once the organ and the lead guitar and the rhythm guitar and the drums and voice were there, they were almost all there for the entire rest of the song. And I think just creating a little bit more dynamics in giving a bit of a breakdown or a bridge or something that just stripped it back meant it could come. And I think Mimo Japan actually noted this as well. The guitar tone was really good. It was a very much like that lead 80s guitar tone with the reverb on there. But I felt, especially in that final chorus where you just bring it on home, you could give it a bit more guts. Maybe just turn that distortion up a couple of notches just to really smack you in the face. Because I found that the end of the song almost felt a bit like the first chorus. And I think when you're finishing off a song like that, you really want to just finish with a bang and give it like that big finish sound. So, but yeah, like I said, I digged it, and I love that. I love the lead guitar solo, and I love I love a verse where you've got the lyrics, and then you've got some nice sort of lead parts that are not necessarily playing. They're playing some counter melodies, they're doing something different to add some flavour. So thought that was really cool. But great song. Well done, Dave or Jade or whatever your name happened to be.
Yeah, I mean, I Dave. Yeah, I very much agree that I think Dave, your strength is in songwriting, and I know we felt the arrangement may need some work, but just generally, you've obviously got a skill for arranging, putting different instruments together and all that kind of stuff. It was the mix, really, that, notwithstanding what Jade was saying, perhaps about in terms of the arrangement, in terms of how long it went for, probably could have dropped one of the guitar solos. I think there was 2, or because it felt like it was good, but I don't know if I needed this bit in here. If you weren't going to have the second guitar solo or something, then you should do something completely different, like completely bang rhythm change, or
like
a
Pete
drop.
Suggested, a drop.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but overall, I enjoyed it. Here's a couple of things that Jade and Pete sort of didn't touch on so much. Is I felt that the keyboard sounds in there, and the Hammond was mentioned, were really nice, but they were softening the feel of it. Now, if you said in the notes to me you were trying for a Led Zepp feel, and the effect of those instruments is that they were actually making it sound softer, in my opinion. It's not to say you shouldn't use those, but you can overdrive, like B3 sounds, you can have them overdriven and things like that, and they can be a bit grittier. They perhaps sound a little bit clean, the keyboards, if you want that gritty sound. But if it's not what you're going for, then I think they sounded sort of nice is probably the word about it. With the guitars, particularly the rhythm guitars, in my opinion, people were saying that they could do with a lot more guts, and I would be looking as well at increasing the mids to them. They did sound a little bit to me like they were sort of scooped in the middle. I've talked about this before because I'm guilty of this. It's almost like that classic thing you get with Strats. The nicest sounding thing on a Strat is when you've got it out of phase kind of thing. It sounds beautiful, but it gets lost in a mix. It disappears in a mix. Well, it's that kind of thing. You can get electric guitars sounding really nice when they're soloed, but if they don't have that edginess that you need from the mids, they'll disappear in a whole mix. And I've got, I've mentioned it a few times, I've probably illegally got multi-tracks of Bohemian Rhapsody, and they're great learning sort of thing. I won't use them on the show and do a reaction to them, but I feel like when I listen to that, it's good learning material. And I've got to say, I love Brian May, I love his guitar tones, but his guitar tones soloed sound pretty harsh. They sound really very aggressive and harsh. Like you think, whoa, and then you notice how much softer they are when they're actually in the mix and they sound balanced. So maybe it's an EQ thing rather than the volume thing with the guitars there, And with the vocal, it's very hard. Like I like your vocal tone. It's got a nice. It is a soft tone, actually, overall. But if I'm totally honest with you, I might consider retaking some parts and forgetting anyone's ever going to listen to this and let go, because there was one bit, and I've written this in my notes, where you sort of it's almost like you're going to shout "finally" over you, but it comes out as if, oh, people might be listening, I won't just forget my inhibitions and just go for it, right? And it's almost, you can hear the slight half-heartedness in it, and we all suffer from that at times if we become self-conscious or and so if you can find the right day where you're in that mental space where you're like, I don't give a toss what anyone thinks, I'm just going to sing this line like I bloody well mean it, then I think it'll be magic then in terms of the vocals, because your vocals in terms of pitch and sound is great. You're fine. You're a good vocalist. So yeah, that's my only thing. Only thing.
No, I totally agree with that. I think that's the one thing that I hear in so much, because I do a show every week where I listen to 30, 40, 50 songs in similar sort of format, but sort of smaller chunks of them. And the one thing I hear from those sharing their first or second song is always that it's almost like they're singing within themselves. And I think we've all been in that position where, you are hesitant. And what I said is, if you go with the mindset that I'm going to try and hit this note, and if I miss it, I want to miss it spectacularly.
Yeah,
I want to miss it so badly that I'm going to have to go back and retake it, because if you're singing within yourself, you're more likely to slightly miss a lot of notes and slightly miss the pocket in your timing a few times. If you just go for it, you'll hear if you don't get it, and then you go back and try again. But when you get it, that's when you can get lightning in a bottle, and that's where you can get that passion that you can really hear and feel in a song. So I agree, Mike. That is a good call.
And another thing, just about those kind of vocals here, where you may have a vocal where you're kind of almost shouting a line, where it's an exclamation. Don't be scared to double up on that. I did listening to a mix by another guest of the show, Ed Thorne, and a release he did last year had this one line where he was kind of like shouting it. And when we went through the mix, what I noticed he did, he kind of sung it with his main vocal, and then he like screamed it with another one, and he put a little bit of distortion on there as well, and that was, and it just made all the difference to that particular line. So yeah, I think it'd be worth doing with that song.
I agree. Can I just say,
carry on,
vocal
Jay.
too, because I do a lot of death metal stuff too, but like I've been working on this album Desir for a little bit of time, too long actually, and because I do some really crazy screaming, sometimes you're unable to do it, and you're trying to create angst and terror in this one line, and I use the same idea of, like, if something's not working, go away and do something else, and even come back when you wake up some days, hey, and we all do, we wake up some days and just want to kick the dog.
Yeah.
And there's your chance to get up and move over to your home studio and hit record and kick the dog with your voice, get it out. And what you suggested there too, Mike, with layering up a scream and a melody, I do that a lot with the metal stuff that I do. I'll lay two tracks of a vocal melody, then maybe a harmony of that, and then in the background a really crazy rah! But and it just adds this beautiful texture to it, like dragging something through the dirt, but you're not losing any of that melody, and it really makes a difference. So don't be afraid to scream like you're being attacked.
Absolutely. And just with that doubling up stuff as well, because I guess when I'm recording Susie, for example, we're doing a lot more of it on chorus and things, not for the screams. Susie's not really a screamer. Can't believe I just said that on here. But
Sorry, Susie.
We love you, Susie.
She's in the other
It's
room
Mike
working.
that's filthy.
She's mouth
But
out
yeah,
with soap.
when you do these doubling in general, but I mean the approach I like to take with it, because people will be scared, it's going to sound fake because people are going to hear like two voices, right, or something like that. Then take the approach of, get your main vocal up and then blend this other one in, and there will be a point where you don't really notice it, but if you mute it, suddenly everything feels like the life dropped out of it, right? So. So just experiment with balancing things in that way when you're doubling up, and you do it with feel a little bit. I see. I made Ricky T. Brown laugh, and it must be 2:00 in the morning there. So
I like Sorry, I like Kianora Music has got a good point there too.
She has. I was just about to pop that up there. Let's do that.
Very cool. Yeah, so just closing your eyes and feeling it like I think that's the thing. There's a reason why when you watch people sing and they're really emoting, that they close their eyes, they get their hand up in the air, and they're really just because you're almost like you're reaching for it. But yeah, that's something that I've learned over time, is that if you do it well, if you sing like no one's watching, a bit like dancing, and let me tell you that people I want to be dancing with no one watching. But
Go watch a Joe Cocker video.
Yeah.
Change those movements. There's a reason why you do that. It's like a guitarist playing and pulling stupid guitar faces.
Yes.
There's a reason that happens. It's because you are so lost in that moment that your sex face is coming out while you're playing guitar. And, it's the same with singing. And people used to laugh at Joe Cocker and go, what's wrong with him? But some people need that kind of thing. It's like when
for sure,
people speak and they emote with their hands. I do that a lot too.
I love to see it though. I kind of feel that I'm drawn into the person's performance more, even if it looks a little uncomfortable and not cool, because that's what the Joe Cocker look really was. Yeah. But I just feel like, I'm digging this. This person's really there in the moment with their. I mean, even to some degree, and people will always be advised not to do it for performing. Don't shut your eyes when you sing. But I don't know. Sometimes when I see people just shut their eyes and they've forgotten the audience and they've got lost in that note or whatever it is, it draws me into the performance. There you go. Disagree with me if you like. I'm just going to do a quick word from our wonderful sponsor, DistroKid. I don't have a little video for this one, but I'm just going to talk about it and let you guys be aware, because there's a feature on DistroKid where you can split. What they call it, splits, don't they, Pete? Tell people what splits are, Pete.
So splits are like when you have someone like Jade Starr that plays drums on your tracks. You can go into your splits on DistroKid and you can say, I'm going to pay Jade 1% of all proceeds. No, I actually pay about 20%. I think I overpay her for drums. But yeah, it means if you're collaborating with another artist, or you have a featured artist, or you're a part of a band, you can actually split any of those incoming royalties. So whenever I make, those 4 or 5 cents on streaming revenues, then Jade Starr gets 1 cent, and it'll go straight into her DistroKid account, just like that.
Cool stuff. And the reason I've brought it up is because there's a little addition to splits that I want to mention. They've got something called Artists for Change. So this is a tool that they've introduced on DistroKid where you can assign some of your income to a charity of your choice. And you can use the splits feature to do that. So automatically, some amount of your royalties will go over to them. And you can use that. And some organisations, I don't know the full list, but some of the examples of organisations would be Miracle Messages, North Brooklyn Angels, Slice Out Hunger, Vouchers for Veggies, Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Ground Up Music Foundation, NAACP, Legal Defence Fund, and the National Independent Venue Association. So I think it's nice to do these kinds of things to help out the community that you or a cause that you feel invested in and that you want to support, and it can be done automatically and something you won't notice. So great features. Nice to see DistroKid doing some features like that. I'd like to see them do some more like that. So we're going to move on to the next track. I hope I actually loaded it up. I think I did when Pete was waffling on there. I'm pretty sure I took the time to load up the next track.
Whoa, what's that about glass houses, NJ? I'll tell you what.
Somebody see waffle?
So true. I have to take that one. So we are going to have a track from Charles. I hope I've got your name right, Charles. Hughley. I'm going to say that. Interesting title here, Alien Brew. Producing Cakewalk, sung through in a Shaw SM7B, as we were discussing earlier Mr. Johns, and using a preamp, which I've heard mentioned a couple of times actually, the Great River ME1NV preamp. I have never used it, but I know some people swear by it. And then into an Audient ID22. Love Audient interfaces. I've had good experiences with them so far. Guitar used, just for the guitar nerds out there, was a Gibson 335, which is a guitar on my list of things that Susie isn't going to allow me to buy. Where are we going to put it? And that was DI'd in. So he's DI'd the guitar in. I don't know which guitar sim he's used. Anyway, I didn't get the notes for that. Anyway, use the Spitfire Audio BBC Symphony Orchestra Core, which comes up time and time again in people's tracks these days, and I use it myself, and I've got some pretty expensive string libraries, and I end up using this free one from Spitfire, which is just amazing. Also use Mono Bass, which I love as well. Easy Keys and Addictive Keys and Easy Drummer, which I want to have a discussion about Easy Drummer. A few people are using this, and anyway, moving on. Effects. I didn't want to list all of the effects, but lots and lots and lots of PSP effects. So great effects. Waves Vocal Rider, which is going to be interesting when we talk about this track. Waves Sibilance and Melodyne, which I've talked a lot about this week, which I actually am a bit of a fan of. A quote from Charles before we listen to the track. He said, "The most time-consuming aspect of the production was arranging the orchestration, which is the most ambitious I've ever done. Singing is challenging for me. I also have a hard time balancing the levels of the vocals and the instrumental mix. I wanted the vocals present enough to be clearly understood, but not too loud for a rock or whatever you call this mix, which probably turned out to be contradictory parameters. To evaluate the translation of the mix to another system is difficult. I made numerous CDs. People make CDs still, maybe for this purpose, which he played through on the stereo system in the other room, which seems to be a reliable process, he felt. So let's have a listen to this interesting song. I'm going to say this is quirky. I'll preempt it by saying it's quirky. It's Alien Brew.
On a distant planet, biding time, just wasting away. Sit drinking in a bar that's stinking with the dregs from before yesterday. I knew that this could not last. I was headed for a crash. As I sat and ruminated, I saw signs illuminated, advertising drinks new and old. One stood out, it had some cloud, a simple glass. The ad had glass, the caption read, "For only the bold." If you're game for something new, you should try an Alien Brew. Came a barmaid with a pitcher and she said, "Would you like to try an Alien Brew?" I acquiesced and she poured me a glass. I knocked it back and she filled it anew. How many I drank, I can't say. Surely I sealed my fate that day. body flowed like liquid. New forms replaced my jeans. Truth came as revelation. My mind became serene. Far better I had died. I was transmogrified. I'm still sitting in that bar and drinking right now. Another brew would be just grand. She steers and pours my beer. I know I'll never leave from here. A claw now holds my glass and not a hand. No longer of the realm of men. I am now an alien.
That's what happens when you press the wrong button. you thought we were in for
Play it again,
part 2, then, didn't you? There's quite a lot to unpack there. I'm going to go over to Mr. John's to have a chat first. Pete, did you take notes?
Sure did.
You did? Oh,
No,
he's
I got all my notes
Let's
here.
hear.
So yeah, first of all, fun song, love the premise, original and not boring. Like the worst thing about a song is when you just get bored and over it. But the best thing is when you've got a song that's a story. I love me some storytelling songs, and you alluded to it before. A lot of what I write and what you write, Mike, is sort of you sing a songwriter, your classic. Here's a tale, a little story about Jack and Diane. Yeah, love a song that tells a story, and that was a funky story. A bit of Weird Al kind of feel to that, and that's a compliment because I'm a huge Weird Al fan, and I do love myself a bit of musical comedy and a bit of some sort of interesting premise. So yeah, digging on that. The jazzy swingy rhythm was good and like went throughout the orchestration. So the strings, especially in the intro and the outro and when they were overpowering. So they were over compressing and limiting and bringing down. So you couldn't hear the drums when the strings were going. So I like the idea of putting some strings there, but I think they needed to be quite substantially more subtle because they were hitting really hard in those spots that they were there. So that got a little bit lost in there, and especially on the string stabs, like it was overwhelming, and I'm just not sure that they're needed, to be honest. I think that there was a lot going on in the arrangement that probably didn't need. I think stripped back, I think this track could actually work a lot better with a bit more stripped back. I heard horns instead of strings. I heard horns, so I would have loved to hear some brass stabs, some horns, some trumpets, some French horn in there, because it was more like a jazz song to me, and I wanted it to have a bit of a not ska feel, but almost a bit of like a jazz feel to it. The panning was quite distracting with the organ. There was some pretty extreme panning on the left and the right side. So at one point there was a lot of very treble heavy sounding organ in I think the left channel from memory, and it just kept drawing me over to there, and I think when you're mixing, it's mixing not only your volume levels but also your frequencies. And I think if you've got a solo and you've got a high frequency track and you're putting it all on one side, it can kind of feel like your head's tilting the whole time when you're listening to it, because it's very heavy on the one side or the other. And in terms of just the pocket and the rhythm, with a swing beat, with a jazz beat like that, it's really important to hit every single note right on the beat. And I think just a couple of times the vocals just got a little bit ahead, and it kind of feels like you're tripping over yourself. And it's a complicated rhythm to keep, because when you've got a swing rhythm, it's not just your 1, 2, 3, 4 hit it on the beat. You got to find that syncopation that's going to work with the song. So that probably just really focusing in on that. Like we talked about before, just when you're singing, close your eyes and just listen to the rhythm and go along with that. the lead guitar solo, the tone was probably the highlight for me. I loved the lead guitar tone. I thought the tone sounded good, and I liked the solo. I think it worked really well in the song. And lengthwise, as Jade said on the last one, I think probably maybe it's just my attention span these days, but probably one sort of break or one sort of verse shorter, just to bring it down to sort of 3.5, 4 minutes, because I think it was probably 5 minutes plus, and it just seemed a little bit lengthy. But that was again, I love it. I love a weird concept. I love something that's a bit out there, and that was definitely not boring. So dig it.
Cool. Jade, I saw you nodding a lot there. Did Pete say everything you were going to say?
Yeah, he did. Absolutely. And I heard those horns as well. I heard this da 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 da. It was there
right?
the whole way through. The strings, they needed to be legatos, and they needed to be a lot more subtle, and just underneath, just maybe some violas, just something really subtle under there, just carrying it through like some nice subtle ways. See, this time I'm not talking producer for this particular song. I want to talk about actually.
We've swapped.
Yeah. And so this is more about musical, the musical stuff. So definitely agree with that. I think I absolutely agree with that left hand organ. It was just pulling me way too much. I think with the panning, so it need to come down a little bit, 100%. Well, not 100%, but need to come down. And I think the panning needed to be, more your 45 on there, and just a bit
Maybe
more
everything
centered.
down 100% to keep it in balance.
The other thing, like with the vocal too, look, I agree 100% that it wasn't in the pocket, and that's with your phrasing. I mean, you can really, some of the words that were in there. Look, I really love the song too. Really love the quirkiness of it. Really love the story, because I love character-driven stuff. It had me watching and really into it. But with the phrasing, and you've just got to really nail those words. And I think more go back and just make sure those words fit, because when it was in the pocket, it slapped. It was great. And then when it was just in and out, the other thing I would draw attention to as well, being a drummer also, is we needed some more variation on the rides and stuff, just to give it a little bit more color, because it kind of just was so much the same. And when you have a song that has so much space in there, you need a little bit of variation with those rides and those little hi-hat, little thrills and little things that make it a bit more exciting. They're only tiny touches, but they're those little surprises in there that as you're listening to it, you go, oh, what was that? Oh, wow, what was that little thing? You need some little surprises in there, because it is such a groovy song, that it pulls you in, and you need to be, what they used to tell me when I worked at American Express, you need to surprise and delight your customers. And those little frills, they're the things that surprise you and get you to go, ooh. So, it's just missing a little bit of that, ooh. Is that a thing? It is now.
It is now.
It is now. Thanks, Jade. The discussion, I guess, in the notes was Charles seemed to think he didn't know what kind of song this was. He thought it might be a rock song. This is a sort of a jazz song, in my opinion. Just because it's got a distorted guitar in it, that doesn't mean it's a rock song. So if this is treated as a swing song, it works very well. Just quickly, what Jade was talking about with the dynamics there. So the ride symbol is like highly important in this form of music, and it felt both not enough dynamics, meaning it was at the same level all the way through, and it was a little bit hard actually. If you listen to it again, it was a little bit loud. And that sort of swing music has that lovely light sounding ride. You'll never forget it's there. It's always there, but it just feels like. In terms of the strings, I thought I couldn't judge the sound as much because of the way they were being used. I think someone mentioned in the comments they were just like these big swelling chords. Whereas if they were used, I think in the way Pete mentioned with the last piece of music, as a sort of a reflecting back to the vocal line. So if it was da 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 ba da 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 da, just lines like that, just echoing back, whether it was strings or horns, as you've suggested, which I think was a good suggestion. Then I don't know that those big swells worked. And also in terms of the length of the song, the intro for me was about twice as long as it needed to be. It had some of these big swells happening, and there was another part where they were happening where you could have probably got rid of it completely, and you could have kept all of your lyrics and everything and just had a song that was a little bit shorter, which the song was about the story. At the end of the day, this is a story song, and love it. I mean, I love the quirkiness. I'm always bitching about how songs in the mainstream today are about the same three things over and over again, and that subjects for songs were more varied. When I were a young lad, they were much more varied, and. But I will say, and another thing, just lyric. It's the only song I've ever heard with the word transmogrified in there, and I thought that was just that was worth so many points. I actually had to Google the meaning of transmogrified after I heard it, because I thought, is that actually a word, or has Charles made that one up? I love it anyway, but it means to transform in a surprising or magical manner. So Jade wanted to be more transmogrified by some of the elements of your song, Charles. But overall, it's a memorable song, and as Pete said at the beginning, it's much better to be sort of memorable in a way of, that could be fixed, than just I lost track because I was so bored and it was the same old thing. That's the worst thing to be, boring. Good on you, Charles, for submitting, and I hope we've been able to help you out in terms of looking at that mix mostly for that song, and perhaps a little bit of arrangement stuff. Jade, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I just want to remind Charles that these comments are absolutely said with love. So this is not like American Idol or any of these things where we're trying to demonize you. Everything that I know I definitely say on here is said with absolute love and care, hopefully, and keep and don't be worried about your vocal either. Like you did say that you were worried about your vocal. It sat really well in there as well, and you are a vocalist. That phrasing, that's just that little thing, and it's what you'll get when you feel things, or when you're a bit more confident about it. So just stick at it 100% because you're rocking it.
Absolutely. Talking lastly on this, because I was just reminded there about us not sort of attacking and stuff, but there is something I feel like attacking to do with this song and others, and I'm just today noticed a trend in this, and I do have a little bit of a relationship with Toontrack actually, so they're probably going to kill me for this, but I've noticed during this series, and we're on episode 18, that whenever someone uses Easy Drummer, we go, those drums don't sound great. I'm starting to see a pattern there. I don't normally criticize products on my channel. I'd rather focus on the ones I like, but I just happen to have noticed a pattern. I'm not an Easy Drummer user, but I'm not compelled to go out and get it in the Black Friday sale. Sorry. So there you go. Not a fan.
I think Jade's mentioned it a bunch before, but I think any automated drummer, the temptation is to sort of set it and forget it, and you don't, like exactly what you're saying about the rides there. If you're hand programming in drums, as annoying as it can be, you can make sure that you've got some fills, you can make sure that you've got some subtleties and some variation. It's too easy to copy paste an entire pattern and just go, yeah, it's good enough. Yeah. And I think a lot of the time people don't spend enough attention really. So what they need to do is hire Jade Starr to play their drums for them. So there you go. It's a plug for Jade.
And it even worries me to copy a pattern. Some people, I was tempted in the past, I'll just temporarily copy some of the grooves from the drum plugin over while I record the rest of the song. I never do it because it worried me in the end that would affect everything else about the guitar parts, the bass parts when I was playing them, because it would have the effect of sort of flattening everything out and having no dynamics in everything else, because you're going to play along with those temporary drums as well. So, no, do it right first time. Think about, I've said it a couple of times before on the show, but since it was pointed out to me some time ago that the way Ringo Starr drummed with the Beatles was to play the song. Like there's nothing in his drum patterns which is the same from one song to another, and you'll hear, say, when he's hitting a ride cymbal, it'll be accentuating something in the vocals or something that's happening in the guitar or what have you. It's always tied directly to the song, and that's the beef I have with Grum Drooves, which I just, to be honest with you, I never ever use them, and I very rarely have. So
Yeah.
Not that that's a great advert, but there you go.
Hey, look, it's better than a metronome or no drum. So I figure if you're going to play along to some drums, play along to some auto drummers actually can give you a bit of a groove. But yeah, the temptation is that you mold the song around the temporary drum groove, exactly as you said, Mike, instead of molding the drums around the song. And I know this because when Jade and I work together on a song, and when I say work together, I normally write a song and then say, Jade, fix it with drums. And then the drums are they're always similar to what I've provided, but there's always something different. And I think that's the good thing about collaborating. And again, you mentioned DistroKid before, but the good thing about releasing a music and having DistroKid and their splits feature is that, yeah, you can actually collaborate with other people and keep it fair and make sure that people are getting paid the royalties for contributing to your music.
Another guest from the show, Ed Thorne, is recording some drums for one of my songs at the moment.
There you go.
Inspired by the situation. That's nice to do. I'm so excited to get them back, actually. I'm like, come on, I want to see
Won't
what he's
be.
done.
You get the same thing as what happens with me and Pete. So Pete sends me a track.
Yeah.
And I have the auto drummer from GarageBand in there, and I listen to it and go, yeah, that's great, cool, I like that. It's a steady beat, and then I'll jump on my kit and play a bit, and then I hear these different things because the auto drummer Pete uses it as a metronome. And so it's pretty consistent all the way through. But then I hear the song and go, oh, well, I can half time it here and really give the song a totally different direction. And normally by the time I've finished it and send it to Pete, it's like this. I'm like this as I press the send button, my hand's shaking. And I know every time he's going to hate it. And that's what I want. I actually want him to hate it because it puts him outside of his comfort zone. And then he has to listen to it for a day and go, oh, I see what you're doing there, because you're going to expect something too, Mike. Yeah, so
I know.
I hope you
I
are
know.
bitterly disappointed because several hours.
God, don't
no,
say that. Don't say
because
that. Every time I hear Ed's drumming, though, it's so good.
Let
It's
me
just so
finish.
good. Yeah, carry on.
Because normally if you are bitterly disappointed, a few hours later when you hear this change that's put in there, like a timing change or a half time, that's when you go, oh my God, I can see what's going on here. I can see that it's needed because the drummer is the expert who knows what to do and can hear that change that you might not hear as a musician who's not that drummers aren't musicians.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
keep up, Jade.
There's a quote from the show right
Jade is absolutely fucking right. Oh, sorry, it's 57 minutes.
You're a bit late, actually, as it turns
I know,
out.
sorry. I didn't want to interrupt Jade, but I hit the 57-minute mark, and I follow your instructions directly, Mike. So apologies to DistroKid and the sponsors. I'll do a Tim Payne and get up there and apologise for everything.
Talking about DistroKid, the sponsors, folks, if you haven't signed up for DistroKid and you want to release your music to the world, you should definitely follow the link in the description for that. And this is what's going to happen when you follow that link in the description. Now, if you do follow the link in the description down below, it's going to take you to a special page on DistroKid with this yellow banner at the top. That banner is letting you know that you're going to get a further 7% discount off your first year if you sign up here. And let's face it, it's already very cheap. If we scroll down, we can see that a year's membership is $19.99 per year for an unlimited number of albums and songs. And so long as it's your own music, there are no extra charges, and you get to keep all of the royalties from the various platforms. Platforms like Spotify, Apple Music, TikTok, Pandora, Amazon, Instagram, Tidal, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and more. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much again to DistroKid for sponsoring these shows. And we are going to move on to our last song. By the way, I keep meaning to say hi to Ron Ward, who's here in the chat. Nice to see you here. Ron. Should have Ron on the show at some point, I think, and we should. And some recommendations here. Someone saying, sorry I didn't pronounce your name, and I'm not going to attempt to. I'm dyslexic enough with English without trying foreign names all the time. But I use Superior Drama 3. Yeah, I do sometimes too. It's one of my picks. I have mentioned a couple of times. This week because it's Black Friday and I haven't got any links in the description. But I do think Addictive Drums 2 has stood the test of time for the many years it's been out. I know Jade's not looking impressed there by what I'm saying about Addictive Drums 2. Jade?
No. I use a whole bunch of different things on iOS because I don't use computer, so I don't have access to that.
I just noticed, like, whenever I've got drummers on the show and we talk about, virtual drums, their head always drops down a little bit, and there's a little smile comes on their face, like losers.
I'm all for virtual drums. I use a mixture of virtual drums and my kit, so like I think there's plenty of room for virtual drums, and there's plenty of room for loops, all that kind of stuff. It just depends on the song,
Yeah, absolutely.
If you that's all you have, you can make.
Well, that's a
can
good
make
point.
shit
That's the
into
art of the
gold.
home studio, working with what
Yeah.
you've got. But yeah, Addictive Drums 2 is on special in a number of different places. I think I put a link in my other video to Plug-in Boutique, but I think some other places. I think even Sweetwater may have it. I can't remember the price. It was like $100 and something, like the low end of like just over $100 for the plug-in, plus 3 kits, 3 MIDI packs, and 3, because you can actually buy individual drums from them as well. And there's Jade blowing smoke up my...
That's what we're here to tell you. I'm worried about the telling off that
wish
we
I
might
was
get at the end
underneath.
of there. Be like, Pete, you swore Jade, you blew smoke. That's it. You're never coming on the show again.
That's right. Yeah. Get Ron on.
Get Ron. I'll totally get Ron on. And we're
Ron's
doing it
awesome.
at a Ron-friendly time now too. So Ron can definitely be on there. So
Some wigs, it'll be awesome.
Let's move. Someone's just asked me quickly, what do you think about Battery 4? I haven't actually used Battery for many years. I used a very, very early version of it, like 10 years ago, and it was good back then. So I'm assuming it got better. So in that case, yeah, it's awesome. I recommend it. So let's move on to the final song. This is from Dave Maris. This is a great song title again, A Street Called Heaven.
Ooh.
A Street Called Heaven. Nice. Use Cakewalk and use the free version of Spitfire's BBC Symphony Orchestra. In fact, this piece is almost entirely that. There's not much to say about plugins or gear or anything like that. I think this is just an orchestral piece. And the quote from Dave is this: I used to write pop rock tunes in the 70s and 80s, but then real life took over. About a year ago, I started writing again after I downloaded Cakewalk. This piece was written about 6 months into my journey of learning production, and I have a lot of video editing experience, which helped me to pick up the Cakewalk door quite quickly, but I have no formal music training. I just write music from the heart. I don't even have a MIDI input device, so no keyboard even to do this. Had to put in everything manually on the piano roll, which is very tedious, but it got the job done eventually. I didn't feel the need to add effects on individual tracks. It's very wise to know you don't need to add something. That's a very wise decision in mixing. I just used the reverb that comes with the BBC Symphony Orchestra plugin. I did a lot of automation on each instrument and adjusted the EQ for each track and balanced the faders. That's it. And that's mostly my approach to mixing. Balance the faders, make it roughly sound right, resort to other techniques when things are out of hand. There you go. You heard it from me. It's as simple as that, folks. So let's have a listen to this piece of music. This is called A Street Called Heaven. was such an epic sounding ending. There we go. I did it again. I pressed the button again. I don't know.
So
what the hell
epic,
I'm
we're going to
doing
hear
now.
it again.
I don't know what's going
Double
on today.
shot?
I'm just pressing buttons like that one. Let's see what happens. Anyway, we're going to go over to me first for this one, just for the hell of it. I don't have a lot to say in the sense of that, Dave. You've just got into this whole game here, so great effort for an early thing. It's really, really hard, actually, this thing of, writing these kinds of pieces. There's a lot of musical stuff going in there. So you've got a musical bone in your body, absolutely, for sure. I thought the actual library itself was helping you because it's a good sounding library. There's just one thing I want to talk about, and I'll let my guests actually waffle on, was, not that I do that, was a couple of breaks in there which were really welcome, where you had this really high string happening, and it was nice to have the breaks. I think it was a great idea. With these libraries, the natural decay of the instrument doesn't always work with you. I find you have to sort of mix it up by using a little bit of volume automation or clip gain automation in some cases, depending on the format. You can't always rely on the instrument itself, that it's going to sort of decay naturally with those longer notes and the release of those. It just sounded a little bit unnatural in those spaces. That's the only thing I wanted to say about it, but I enjoyed the piece. Well done, Dave. I'm going to go over to Jade.
Awesome. Yeah, look, it's a beautiful piece, and I agree 100% with what you said there. And it's hard with virtual instruments because you do get that cut-off where it cuts straight into the next piece, and it's an art to really get that down and find the right decay for each instrument, because you've got so much going on there. Look, but I have to say, you have to be commended for not having a MIDI controller.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very cool. I would love to hear you with a MIDI controller with the ability to use some velocity in there, because that was another thing that was missing. With orchestral music, velocity is really important, just like drums. You really have to have those ebbs and flows and peaks and valleys and those moments where everything does come down. So when you've got those timpanis in there, that it does build up and it explodes. And I think, who did I see right in here? Keonra is music. It's a very much cinematic feel. I've sung with a live orchestra, and if I may suggest, listening to something like Beethoven's Ninth, exactly, the ebb and flow, go back, listen to the classics, the legends, the Ludwig Beethovens, all of them, they will give you those moments where there is that. Even go and watch Looney Tunes, Warner Brothers cartoons. They use that technique so magnificently. Like when you see a character tiptoeing to the next point, and they bring everything down, and then everything comes in. I'm not saying to that lunacy, but yeah, just those ebb and flows will really, really give that what it does give. It will bring up the emotion in the listener that they will burst into tears. That's the difference between a real orchestra and a virtual instruments. But absolutely commendable, beautiful work for no MIDI controller. Do yourself a favor, go out and get a Arturia Keystep 37. And not that I'm trying to flog anything, because they're cheap as chips. Here, I've got one right here. Look how small they are. They're tiny. And this thing is a beast. It has velocity, it has aftertouch. Get something like that, and you will be composing some absolutely mind-blowing stuff. Brilliant.
Because,
Good
I mean,
stuff.
that's the thing, is that I remember years ago not having a keyboard and putting things in step time and what have you. And it's sort of doable, and you can even do your velocity and all that. But you're likely to get lazy with it because it's such hard work. So you're likely to go, oh, that'll be fine. And also your headspace gets into just like melody and harmony rather than dynamic when you're doing it. Whereas when you play it on a keyboard, it's just going to be intuitive that you're going to put, or hopefully it's going to be intuitive that you're going to, add dynamics in your playing anyway. So yeah, what say you, Mr. Johns?
Can I just say one more thing?
Carry on, Jade.
And don't be afraid, and because you touched on it before we actually went to this track. Don't be afraid to pull things out and just this is with every song. Don't be afraid to pull things out and before you do a final mix, just pull an instrument out here or there and just have a listen to it without, because less is always more. It really does make a difference. I learned one time I went into a studio. I paid a really good audio engineer here in Australia named Pete. Funny, not this Pete Northcote, who's an amazing guitarist.
I didn't think you meant
as well.
this Pete either. I didn't
He's
think
an
that when
amazing
you
one,
said
totally,
awesome audio engineer.
But I did pay him to go into the studio and listen to my songs. I was never going to actually use his studio at all. Just wanted him to listen to my songs. And the most valuable information I got after years of home recording, he just listened to all the songs, turned to me and said, yeah, you need to pull out about a quarter to half of the stuff that's in there. And now every time I mix everything, it's always nagging me in the back of my head. Take some stuff out. And it's okay to over put stuff in if you have that voice in the back of your head going, remember to pull some stuff out.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind. Sorry.
No
Over
worries.
to you, Pete.
Over to you, Pete. Yeah.
No, and I agree. I wanted you to finish that thought because I agree with that. I think just because I've been playing around with a 4-track this week. I'm trying to get working again. And for those that have recorded back in the day using analog gear and using 4-track recorders, it made you have to make really, really careful decisions about what you included. And I think the problem is now that we have an infinite track count in all of our DAWs, but technically we use too many because just because you can doesn't mean you should all the time. So this song, again, knowing what I knew, if I just listened to that and I didn't know that was hand programmed, I'd be like, that's still pretty darn good. But knowing that your hand programs in the piano roll, that is really hard to do to get the dynamics. The strings just hit you straight away. I'm a sucker for some orchestral string sounds, and I actually thought that they were nice and subtly put into the mix. Even though it was a full sound, it wasn't super overbearing. I actually really... You said, yeah, you've definitely got some musical bones in your body. I agree. I think the choice of chords and the change-ups were really nice. One of my favourite things, I'm a sucker from a major chord to a minor change where you just have that la, la. That was used to perfection in about 3 or 4 places in that. And it's just a great way because you can obviously just use your 1-4-5s or your 1-4-5-6s or whatever. But in classical music, you've got a little bit more liberty to use some of those variations. And I think it was used exceptionally well. And it was a bit spine tingly in places, to be very honest. The first sort of 30 seconds, I was like, yeah, this is up my alley. But I do love some orchestral music. We didn't talk about the almost like the timpani hits. I think that might have been the instrument used. But there was some really nice percussive bits
I thought
in
they
there.
could be a bit louder than they were.
That was the thing. It was subtle. I was listening. I'm going, that's really subtle, but I almost wanted it to be and then just like bring you into the next phase. So, but it was really good. And the thing that stood out to me big time, especially when it went from like 3 or 4 or 5 voices playing things to just one. It was really good change up, but like you talked about the decay before, everything else just stopped. And then you heard the one instrument there. So getting that decay right, and even what I've found is that even if you're too lazy like I am to fiddle with your attack and your release on all of your different MIDI instruments, just a little bit of extra room reverb, just stick a whole reverb on there and whack 10% on there. It'll just give it enough of a tail to go over the top, because if something stops abruptly, it takes you out of the moment, because real instruments in real spaces never stop immediately. Doesn't matter what instrument it is, there'll always be some reverberance. So I think that adding a little bit of reverb to that overall mix, even on your master bus, could have just given it that glue. I know I always talk about glue when it comes to reverb and delay, but it could have just glued it together, and it could have made those transitions more natural as opposed to the abrupt sound. But again, round of applause for who was this? Was this Dave or Jade?
This was Dave. Just talking about, you were touching upon it there, the sort of decay and stuff. It's a good point. Whenever you get these libraries out, I think especially with strings, I'm not talking as an expert here, but just as someone who plays around with it a bit, I often find you've got to take care of things like the attack on strings just out of the box, especially if you went around quantizing them, they'll just be out of time, because they do. So for the song, for any particular song, you'll need to adjust the attack for whatever tempo you're playing at and what have you. At times it will be good, other times it's not. And I think the same with the sustained release and decay as well. It's good to focus on this, and that's what I sort of meant to say about this piece of music. It's almost like, okay, you've done the large part of the work, like the 95. Now you need to be in this process where you go through it and you go, just that note there, I need to change that, or I need to adjust the dynamics on that, and just that you need to really fine tune. That's the hard work of this stuff. There's someone in our chat who, Dave, it's worth getting to know. Mimo Japan is there. He's just like an expert on these kinds of things. So hook up in my Facebook group, the Cakewalk one, and get to know Mimo in there. And he's always very, very helpful. So if you just want to learn a little bit about using these kind of instruments, he's just, I was going to say shit hot, but that would be swearing. But now I've said it. So there you go.
I'm the only one who really swears. I'm sorry. I'm in so much trouble for that.
You touched on the instruments within orchestral packs. Like I used to get lazy, and like if I was, because with each, like you've got Baroque stuff in there, and there's every instrument in these packs has a different cut, a different envelope and stuff. So you really have to go individually to each. If it's a Baroque instrument, if it's a strings like to horns, and you really have to go in there and be caring with each of those instruments. And I used to just get lazy because I use iSymphonic on iPad, and if something didn't work, I'd just keep flicking through them until I found one that already had the envelope set. And it was just like, yep, that'll do. It doesn't matter. And I always found I would end up using Baroque instruments because they are naturally they're easier to use. Can I just say, Pete, you did that show yesterday on the 4-track stuff, and look what I dug up.
Oh,
Dude, I found this in my closet.
wow.
It's a Zoom MRS4 with a... Look how big this card
Finally, Zoom have come out of the closet.
With the old smart media cards. Yeah,
I
old
know.
school.
Yeah.
So you inspired me to dig out this monstrosity, and I'm going to try and make some music on it next week.
I'll only say with the old technology, though, that, it's one thing to go back to old, like, quarter-inch tape, but surely no one really misses cassette, the hiss of cassette. No, that's not a vintage sound that we're looking for, is it? Hey,
You'd be really surprised. People are adding record crackle to their songs these days.
Record crackle I can get, but not tape hiss, not 4-track tape hiss, like I bounced it too many times and...
There's heaps of apps that, like this year alone, I've reviewed so many apps this year on iOS that put tape warble and like snapping tape, like broken tape.
It's
and
weird.
It's like,
it's
that
like
was
distress
a sign,
guitars,
like, my
isn't it?
album
It's
was
just...
ruined.
I'm thinking that one day, with all of this trend to go back to like I say, distress guitars or hiss, that somebody like plastic surgeons are going to start putting wrinkles on people's faces and stuff like that. And I'll be walking around like, hey, I'm finally trendy.
Everything old is new again, even Mike.
Guys, it's been a blast. I know you've got things to do. I've got things to do. Just wonderful to have two of my favourite YouTubers. I was going to say my two favourite YouTubers. Look, let me stick with that. Let me stick with that. Screw Ed, screw Ricky, screw the rest of them. You two are my favourites. It's out in the open now. It's just great fun to have you on. I just went talking about Jade was just about to lift her t-shirt off there, but talking about I was going to bring up compliments because Jade, I'm just going to put you up there. We'll just show it. You've had some compliments there on your background during the stream. I didn't know it had anything to do with Star Wars until the pre-show. In fact, I'm one of those guys. I would say, is that from Star Trek or something like that? Because it's Star something. Because I'm totally ignorant of these things. But yeah. But yeah, you've had some compliments there. I had a couple of compliments on my police T-shirt. But Pete, what's going on with the T-shirt there?
This is one of my viewers actually that sent me this. This is from Jim J.K. Martin. He has an acoustic duo called the Martin Brothers. I'll come over here.
It's a cool logo. Yeah.
It is a very cool logo, and it's a really high quality T-shirt. So I'm a sucker for a good 100% cotton ring spun T-shirt, and this is amazing stuff. So it's super comfortable. So they get free promotion. So there you go. If you're an artist, an up and coming artist, just send free T-shirts. We are not above payola, and we'll wear them on our shows, and you'll get free publicity.
And I'm living proof of that. Sting, you pop that over to me after I watch. Yeah, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Well, great to have you on the show, guys.
Today because it's a bit death metal-y, and there's a corpse on the front.
That's okay. This is the show for that. We don't mind corpses here, as long as it's not sex with corpses.
Corpses
we're not
have
doing
feelings. Ask Jimmy Savile. Oh, damn, that was a bit rough, that joke.
I think we.
I've no longer been the most inappropriate one on the show. Whee,
I had to beat you. Damn.
Okay, yeah. I'm looking forward to us all physically being together. I hope that might be soon. And, I shall be an onlooker while Jade beats Pete. And likely the way it's going to go by the looks of things on this show. So thanks for joining us, folks. I'll be back next Thursday with another couple of guests. I haven't picked which ones yet, but it depends how they behave. And, that. I reckon Mr. Pete Johns is very likely to reach 100,000 subscribers by the time I have him on this show next. I just want to say personally, Pete, you entirely 100% deserve it. We've been good friends together throughout this process, and I know people think that we're competitive in some way. I am. I'm absolutely secretly very, very pissed that you beat me to 100,000. But at the same time, I just couldn't think of a better person who deserves it more. Very, very hardworking, by the way, folks, and just like a super great guy. He's helped me out tons and tons in my journey so far here. So congratulations to you, mate. If I don't get a chance to say it anywhere else, I'd love to say it here. Well done.
Appreciate it.
And yeah, Jade, I'm sure feels exactly the same way, and I'll allow Jade too.
I've been one of Pete's his main moderator for 3 years. So I love everything Pete does. I support him I go to the end of the earth. In fact, I went all the way to his house from Melbourne. So
one of the few people that it's from the online world that's crossed over and met me in the. I actually exist. I'm a real person.
I've been on his treadmill.
Yeah, it's been on the blue couch, on the treadmill, all the iconic Studio Live Today places.
I think we'll leave it on that note. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world or your night. I hope you got some good deals in the Black Friday sales, and I'll see you all next